funny to see. Lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we're starting in Alberta with the AHS being dismantled by Danielle Smith. She says it's a brand new day and AHS will no longer be the top of the Alberta health pyramid. Here we go.
Welcome to a new day for healthcare in Alberta. I'm not satisfied with the current state of our affairs, and I know Albertans aren't satisfied either. Alberta's health system isn't working the way it should and the way Albertans deserve, and fixing it is critically important to improving Albertans' quality of life. When I spoke with frontline health workers, I began to get a sense of how we could truly make a difference, a long-term, lasting difference for Albertans' healthcare. Without a doubt, we have the best healthcare workers in the country. They're smart, skilled, endlessly compassionate people who understand their patients and their practice. And yet they are sidelined when it comes to decision making, even though they understand the problems and see obvious solutions. Everything we've heard has helped to inform the development of our plan, a plan that I'm pleased to introduce today. We're creating an integrated provincial healthcare delivery system that concentrates on 4 priority areas: primary care, acute care, continuing care, and mental health and addiction.
I know how distressing it can be when you don't have a healthcare professional to turn to, whether it's for immediate advice or...
So it's a 3-minute little clip here, but here's maybe the part that is the most important part. Here she is talking about how AHS is removed from being the top of the power structure. Here we go.
AHS will be one service provider reporting up to acute care, which is one of the agencies. They're not going to be at the top of that pillar, and they're not going to be at the top of all of the pillars. So under acute care provision, we'll of course have the Covenant Health, we will have Alberta Health Services, and we'll have the doctor-run surgical centers as well under there. And they will all report independently up to the acute care organization that reports directly to the minister.
So a very interesting restructuring, and AHS being humbled. And also it was full of Notley appointees, et cetera, et cetera. So removing them from the top of the heap is a good move. It's interesting, and we'll see how it plays out. In BC, there are Conservatives calling for Bonnie Henry to be fired. So that's interesting as well. Conservative MLA Bruce Banman Premier Eby, fire Dr. Bonnie Henry and hire back our healthcare workers. Here's the video of that. No, that's not it. Here it is. That's also not it. Here it is.
Question period. I asked a very difficult question that I think it's time for Dr. Henry to go. And I'm not alone in that. And here's why I asked for that. British Columbia is one of a very few jurisdictions in the world that refuses to hire back unvaccinated healthcare workers. Look, we've got a healthcare crisis on our hands right now. Let's be real. We need these people in the system. We've got ERs that are shutting down, hospitals that are a mess. I have personal experience with that. My family, my wife, and one of my children were in the hospital. What a mess. They got people lined out in hallways, on beds. They were coming in, having to use the bathroom in one of my kids, where my kids was, in her room. It is an absolute disaster. And not to hire these people back when we got 1 million people that don't have a family doctor in British Columbia. We got 1 million people waiting to see a specialist, and we got ERs closing at random. You cannot have an ER closed down. We need these people. And I think that it is incompetent not to hire these people back and put them to work. They're trained now. They could go back to work. We desperately need them. And to not have them there makes 0 sense to this cowboy. And if you agree with me, you might want to take a moment and let the health minister know that it's time for change. We need to hire these people back. They were heroes one day. We were banging pots for them, and this government turned them into zeros the next and fired them. Makes no sense when we need them this bad right now. Enough's enough.
It's just cringeworthy when I think back to that being one of the things that we could do to show our appreciation, banging pots and pans for healthcare workers. And then, just staying silent when the government came and said, oh, you didn't take this experimental vaccine that causes heart attacks and blood clots, you're fired, right? And the majority of people just put the mask on and stayed quiet, which is part of the reason for the mask, to make you remember they want you to stay quiet. Here's Justin Trudeau promoting vaccines again. He says he got his COVID-19 booster and flu shot this morning, and he says you should get yours too. Nonsense. I just really hope he got both of his. I really, really hope he got both of his. You think it was saline? Yeah, me too. There's multiple ones. What I wanted to show you about this was he has a t-shirt, and the t-shirt says vaccines cause adults. And what you can't see is on the back, it says to have myocarditis on the back. I'm just kidding. That was somebody else's joke. I'm just repurposing it for my show. Here's Viva Fry's joke. COVID jabs cause myocarditis. So yeah. Who wears a t-shirt like this? Who does this? What a numpty, honestly. There are other words I could use, but I'm not going to. Holly Doan says, moving on, let's talk about the carbon tax. Here's the NDP, and they tried for a political grandstanding, and it was shut down by the House. Holly Doan says Commons, by 292 to 30 votes, reject the NDP's motion to remove the GST from all home heating. We are not backing down, Jagmeet Singh says. Weird, right? I really thought Polyev was going to, I don't know, side on the side of the NDP or vote with the NDP or something like that to try and put pressure on Trudeau. Now, the NDP actually has a coalition government with the Trudeau government. They're in government. But here's what the NDP are claiming in their little meme here, in their graphic. It says corporate coalition. Pierre Poilievre votes with Justin Trudeau against removing the GST off of home heating bills. So weird, because these guys have a coalition. If they're mad about that, maybe they should break off their coalition. Maybe? No, I don't think so. They're not going to. NDP says Justin Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre just voted against our motion to take the tax off of home heating and make big oil pay for it. Once again, the Liberals and Conservatives chose big oil over Canadians trying to heat their homes. The whole thing is farcical. Everybody knows, anybody who's paying any kind of attention, when the Conservatives brought forward their motion and the NDP were going to vote with them and the Blocs voted with the Liberals, it was a foregone conclusion that it wasn't going to get through. Even when the Conservatives proposed their bill, proposed this motion, I knew it wasn't going to get through. They knew it wasn't going to get through. Everybody knew it was not going to get through. Why? Because our whole House of Commons is rigged. The elections are rigged to make sure that this House of Commons, with this group of people, the NDP, the Bloc, the Liberals, the Greens to a certain extent, but not much, will push through the policies of the Uniparty. And that's what we're watching, right? And even the Conservatives, right? The Conservatives are voting with the Liberals to make sure everything stays even keel. And Poilievre will not even take real heat about it. Nobody's really going to give him a hard time about this because everybody's decided he's going to fix what Justin Trudeau broke. But he's going to build 15-minute cities. Make no mistake. That's what he's going to do. He's going to bring in a digital ID. It's going to be optional. And he's going to build 15-minute cities. I hope I'm wrong. That's my prediction. Here's Ryan. He says, the fact of the matter, Canadians are afraid of climate change. Trudeau just exposed what it's really about, convincing and keeping Canadians afraid of climate change. He's an evil, sick man. He's so afraid he continues to fly around the country and roll 10-plus SUV motorcades while fighting climate change. So here's Justin Trudeau talking about how Canadians are fearful of climate change. I have no fear of climate change because it's bunk. It's a lie. These people telling me that 97% of paid off scientists agree that the climate is changing and that I should be really worried about that. I know better than to believe these charlatans. And so I'm not fearful of climate change. I'm fearful of the communism. These ideologically captured acolytes of communism are trying to implement. That's what I'm fearful of, if anything. But I have absolutely no fear of climate change. If these idiots stopped doing what they were doing, things would be a lot better and the climate would be just fine. Just like the budget, it would balance itself. Here's just a little bit of Justin Trudeau. I know, Justin Trudeau warning though. 40 seconds, here we go.
I have to admit I'm a little worried for the leader of the opposition. When he has to stoop to bringing up the separatist boogeyman to try and scare Canadians, he must be running out of material. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Speaker, Canadians are afraid of climate change. They're afraid of the extreme weather events. They're afraid of the concerns we have about a brighter future. And what we are doing is fighting climate change every day while we build a stronger economy with greater careers, while we support Canadians every single day with the high cost of living. This is what we're delivering. He has no plan to fight climate change, no plan for the future of the economy, no plan for Canadians.
None of what he said was true. None of what he said was true. It was all just speaking points, lies. Here's Poilievre said something, and then Trudeau goes off on LGBTQ plus kids and pro-abortion and pro-vax. And his whole cabinet again stands up like he's saying something important. I wish that we had Poilievre's question, because this is Trudeau responding to Poilievre's question, but I haven't seen Poilievre's question. I guess I could go to YouTube, but I don't have the time this morning. Apologies. Here is just this cut of this question and, well, this answer. Here we go.
Mr. Speaker, we see the Conservatives' approach to partisan politics and to personal attacks. The reality is, when we stood with the 80 to 90% of Canadians who chose to get vaccinated, they called us divisive. When we chose to stand with women across this country who want to control their own bodies, they called us divisive. When we stand with the 2S LGBTQI plus kids who are being discriminated against in schools across this country, they call us divisive, Mr. Speaker. I ask Canadians, who are dividing Canadians more than Conservatives with their attacks, with their choices?
Deranged, delusional. The person who's dividing Canada the most is Justin Trudeau, through race, through gender ideology, through all sorts of, through rising interest rates, claiming that people are claiming that creating inflationary spending is helping people, claiming that carbon taxes are helping people. These guys are nuts. Honestly, they're just out of touch with reality. It's incredible. This is the same clip. Jenny says, Prime Minister Trudeau was asked about breaks for all Canadians. This was his response, unhinged. What do vaccines, abortions, LGBTQ plus kids, and the spitting and yelling have to do with affordability? One of the things that he talked about there is the women getting to govern their own bodies. It's not their own body, though. I mean, like, it is their own body. But if a woman is pregnant, you're not only talking about the female's body, you're talking about other things. So, like, governing your own body, okay, there's a time for that. But I mean, especially in this modern era, you have a choice. And getting pregnant, I mean, like, okay. But it's one of those things where the reality of the situation, just like MAID, has been sanitized to the point where women's healthcare omits that whole baby part, that whole other human being growing inside you. And people get upset about that. Oh, they're not a human yet, and this and that. What a ridiculous argument. And it's funny that Justin Trudeau, once you see that the argument is false and flimsy, like it's as formidable as a Kleenex, right? Like it is not really an argument. It is, once you see the falsehood, you can't unsee it, right? It's just wild. And like, it's funny how the media and the rhetoric keeps that shawl over your eyes. You can't see it until you step out and realize that they're actively lying to you. They're not sometimes telling you the truth. They're actively lying to you at all times for a reason. They have a purpose. They're trying to lead you to something. Prime Minister. Why do videos just start playing when I don't tell them to? No, says Poilievre asks Trudeau today if he will sacrifice his crazy carbon tax minister by making another carbon tax carve-out. Minister Guilbeault previously said there would not be another exemption as long as he was in the role. This is kind of funny. We'll watch this. Here we go.
Will the Prime Minister sacrifice his crazy carbon tax minister and support our common sense bill to take the tax off?
If I could,
It's a crazy carbon tax.
This
colleagues,
House of Commons is running great, right?
colleagues, all colleagues should know that we cannot use language which calls into question the character of honourable members, individual members. I hear an explanation from the Leader of the Opposition, and I will repeat that so that we can clarify the record. The Leader of the Opposition made a correction saying that he was referring to the policy and not the person. So, but that's...
Can't call him a crazy minister, right? But it takes forever. It takes forever to get anything done. Here's another Liberal comparing Poilievre to Donald Trump. And it's a behavior. She's saying that he's going to do the same thing that Trump did, pulling Canada out of the Paris Climate Accords. But the House loses their mind, and rightly so, because continually trying to paint every opposition leader as Trumpian is ridiculous, and they keep doing it.
Mr. Speaker, the planet is burning, and 72% of Canadians are worried about climate change. Sadly, the Leader of the Opposition does not appear to be one of them. He stated that he will do nothing to reduce our emissions, nor work with the global community within the Paris Accord to protect our future. In fact, just like Donald Trump, the Leader of the Opposition will take Canada out of the Paris Accord. The federal government is committed to net zero and has invested over $120 billion in a greener future. Will the government stand for future generations, unlike the reckless Conservatives with their...
And then Trudeau stands up and says the Conservatives don't have a plan, blah, 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 blah. Here is, again, Trudeau trying to make a jab at Poilievre, saying he doesn't have any vision, and Poilievre saying, even without glasses, I wouldn't make the errors you've made. Here we go.
I want to thank the MP for Aurora Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill for her great questions on this important file. It is shameful that the Conservative leader has no plan to address a crisis facing all of humanity. His emphasis on technology to fight climate change means nothing because he is somebody who has been opposing the development of offshore wind technology in Atlantic Canada. While our government has a serious plan that addresses affordability and the climate crisis, that leader has no plan and no vision. Perhaps he should put his glasses back on.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, with or without glasses, I will not lose $54 million on an app that doesn't work.
There you go. So Poilievre kind of chuckles along and jabs back. So that's, again, more fight in the Conservatives than we've seen previously. Here is a committee meeting asking if Mary Ng thinks that CO2 is a pollutant. Here we go.
CO2 pollution?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, what is the question? Is air pollution?
No, the question is, do you consider CO2 emissions to be pollution? Do you not know?
I don't know.
Okay. You don't know. That's interesting. So you CO2.
The whole premise of the Liberals' price on carbon is a price on pollution. That's the whole rhetorical thing. Somebody was saying that she's just using Trudeau's advice and answering questions, just saying, I don't know, or that's not in my purview, that's not in the scope, that's not in my job. And by doing that, you never have to answer any questions about anything, because by the time you establish what actually is your job, the members' time is up and they can't actually get to anything meaty because you're playing dumb. And it's a tactic. I don't think that she's actually unaware of the Liberal stance. I think that it's a tactic to play dumb, to not actually answer any questions of import. Here's CTV News reporting Canada's emissions reduction plan falling short, Environment Commissioner. So even if we did everything, we would not meet the targets anyway. Here's the quote. If they don't get a handle on the total amount, there's no way of meeting their target, which is the total amount. It's not just about getting more efficient at polluting, it's about actually reducing the amount of greenhouse gases being emitted. When all G7 countries, including Canada, have shown a decline in emissions since 2005, which is the baseline year for the 2030 target, Canada remains the worst performer on the list. Well, we're a cold country. Cold. It's cold. And I mean, how do you stay warm? You use oil and gas, because that works reliably when it's snowing, when it's raining, when when the sun is shining, when the wind isn't blowing. It works. So it's very interesting that they want us to move to something that doesn't. Dr. Lewis is talking about this. Tonight, our Conservative team is tabling a motion at Transport Committee that will reveal the cost of Trudeau's carbon tax on the entire supply chain. Conservatives will continue to fight this punishing inflationary tax and fight for affordability for all Canadians. The carbon tax must go. So, yes. But is it going to be effective? The NDP and the Liberals seem to be quite effective at shutting down motions for Conservatives. And the Conservatives are good at putting these motions together to use as political ammunition. But will it be effective? Our elections are rigged. Super rigged. Really super rigged. So will it be effective? Remains to be seen. Naya says, to no one's surprise, the Trudeau government's major effort on heat pumps is a complete failure. How much money was wasted? It must be billions of dollars. So they had a coordinated effort. They have agreements with Trane. They have agreements with all sorts of other people across the country to get these heat pumps installed. The big numbers are in Atlantic Canada, so we'll start there. Prince Edward Island got 5,393 applications. No data on installations or approvals. Nova Scotia got 2,337 applications. No data on approvals or units installed. Newfoundland and Labrador got 711 applications between March and June. No data on approvals or units installed. New Brunswick got 113 applications, 59 granted, 1 unit installed. 4 applications in the Yukon, 2 granted, 1 installed. Northwest Territories, 1 application, none granted. Quebec, 289 applications, 141 granted, 13 installed. Ontario, 267 applications, 155 granted, 13 installed. Manitoba, 2 applications, 0 granted. Saskatchewan, 0 applications. Alberta, 2 applications, none granted. British Columbia, 207 applications, 119 granted, 10 units installed. So how's your free heat pump, sucker? Right? Like, nobody's falling for this crap. If it worked, if the thing did what they said it would do, then people would just buy it by themselves. They wouldn't need anybody else to help. They wouldn't need an incentive. They wouldn't need anything more. It would just simply be what they did because it made most sense. But instead, people aren't being driven to this by the rhetoric or the advertising or the agreements, right? Even having Trane on board is not in convincing people to install this stuff. Andy Lee says, fun fact, one of the largest heat pump manufacturers eligible for federal rebates is Trane Technologies. In 2001, Trane teamed up with Brookfield's renewable division to deliver green HVAC solutions. The chair of Brookfield is, of course, Justin Trudeau's friend, Mark Carney. There you go. So everybody's getting in the pool, right? All sorts of money for liberal insiders in the pool. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful